Hello and greetings from Devon. Hang on. I'll get over the other side in a minute. Whoa! It's rushing water. Shit, shit, shit. Hey! I've got wet feet. Greetings from Cornwall. I'm down in the southwest corner of England today and going to be following the border between Devon and Cornwall. Really excited about this one. Another ancient border, lots and lots of beautiful scenery where we are right now. So the Devon and Cornwall border pretty much runs from north to south. North Atlantic coast there, where we've just been stood by, going all the way down to the English Channel at Plymouth and Saltash. This bit of the border though is really small and pretty. This is Marsland Water that we're walking along. This kind of goes along for a little bit in an easterly direction for a few miles, and then the source of the Tamar starts. And then the Tamar pretty much forms the entire border all the way down, with a few little exceptions. Before the world became far more divided up along political lines or the results of wars, or colonisation, geographical features obviously were usually the main reason for a border existing. And the border between Devon and Cornwall is pretty much a story of the River Tamar and the bridges over it. And that's pretty much most of what we're going to be exploring over the next day or two. This is our first little bridge over Marsland Water. Been really excited about seeing this one because it's the first time you actually see a marker for Devon and Cornwall, and I've seen it on quite a few websites. So here it is. This side's Devon. Let's cross over this little bridge. It doesn't have a name as far as I know. There's Marsland Water, looking ridiculously, almost obscenely pretty. And then here we go. We're now in Cornwall, and excellent always to see the bilingual sign when you get into Cornwall. Makes you feel like you really are somewhere different. And Cornwall is different. Jesus, that is just obscenely pretty, isn't it? I'm not sure there are many other borders around, or at least in the UK anyway, between counties that are that lush. So here's something interesting on this walk. There's a hut here, and it's called Ronald Duncan's hut. It says it's open, so let's go in and have a look. I don't really know who Ronald Duncan is, but oh wow, look at that. Oh, here we go. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but he was a poet, playwright, journalist, farmer, lover. And he built this hut on the site of an old Coast Guard lookout, and I guess he used to come up here and write. Wow, pretty inspiring place to write, I guess. And here there's a book where you can sign your name and say you were here, so I guess I should do that. It's pretty hard going getting down to Marsden Mouth. Anyway, once we get to the top here, thankfully there's another downhill. So that's the first part of the Devon and Cornwall border. Next up, finding the source of the Tamar and then starting to follow it and checking out the bridges over it as we head south down to the bottom. We're a few miles inland from Marsden Mouth now and on a country lane, and we're going to try and find the source of the River Tamar. As I say, this border is pretty much the story of the river and its bridges. So why is the Tamar the border between Devon and Cornwall? Well, in 936 AD, after centuries of conflict between the invaders from Europe, so essentially I guess the Anglo-Saxons, fighting against the Celtic Britons. Essentially the Saxons from Wessex forced the Britons further and further west across the Tamar, and apparently after many heroic battles, those people, which we now call the Cornish people, were defeated by the King of Wessex, Athelstan, and essentially made to move west of the river, which is sort of where they stayed since. So essentially the Celtic Britons were confined to that land from 936 AD, but essentially that means that's been Cornwall ever since. So it really is an ancient border. Look at this, we love a boundary stone, and here's one with Bradworthy on the left, which is in Devon, and it says Moor and Stowe on the right, which is in Cornwall. So I'm told that not far south from here, about 100 yards, apparently is the source of the River Tamar. So I'm going to try and find somewhere to go into this field and see if we can find it. So I've walked down a few yards south of that boundary stone where people have said to me that the source of the Tamar is. There's a few little ditches with water in that it could be, so I'm not totally sure I've actually found the very source, but it's essentially around here somewhere. I'll show you a couple of things that I've seen that could be it. So there's this one here. And then there's another one. There's one over here that looks like it heads kind of south. So, well, it's around here somewhere. I guess we can pretty much safely say that we're at the start somewhere of the River Tamar. So, yeah, it's the second point of the border. We're now going to, trying to walk through. Oh, there's another ditch here. It could actually be. This one hasn't got a lot of water in it, but a bit further down there it has. It has rained a lot as well, so you'd think maybe there'll be more water in there. But anyway, I think we've sort of found at least the area where the Tamar starts, and which is cool because by the time we get down to the end of the Tamar, it's going to be massive, and some incredible bridges are going to be spanning it. Well, there's quite a few actually on the way. I'm just standing here because it is so muddy and I don't want to go arse over tit, as they say, in the Cornish mud. Or is it a Devon mud? I'm not quite sure. I think I'm on the Devon side. My feet are absolutely soaked. Anyway, never mind. So we found the source. Now let's start going over some of the bridges and follow the river down from the little trickle it is at the moment down to the beast that it becomes down at the channel. So let's find that first bridge. Off to West Eulston. So we've gone a few miles south, maybe not that many, maybe just one or two, and we're coming up to the first bridge on the Tamar, or the last bridge, depending on which way you're going. As we're going north to south, this is the first bridge, and it's a tiny little one. So here's the Tamar now, looking far more like the river, or at least the beginnings of a river, babbling away down there in the distance. Very beautiful. I can't actually tell what sort of construction this bridge is, whether there's actually a little arch down here or anything like that. It's actually a bit treacherous, so I'll probably leave it for now, and let's just just take in what the Tamar looks like up here. So there's a sign here saying welcome to Devon. Turning back the other way though, can't see one for Cornwall. Maybe we'll see it on the drive further up the hill. So a few further miles south now, and we've come down to the next bridge over the Tamar. You can see the welcome to Devon sign there. Once again, seems to be a welcome to Cornwall sign lacking, so I don't know whether that's a reflection of the relative wealth of each county, or at least each county council. But this is a pretty bridge. Here's the Tamar, starting to get a bit wider, a bit bigger. We can see also, extremely pleasing, is another boundary stone, which is showing Kilkhampton on the right for Cornwall, and Bradworthy again on the left for Devon. And there goes the Tamar flowing down towards the English Channel. Such a pretty border. A few miles downstream now, and we're now at the next bridge over the Tamar. This one's kind of at a different angle. There, incredibly, are some deer running away. I don't know whether you can see that, but that is amazing. Some wild deer just ran past. Awesome. Anyway, let me just go over to give you a better shot. Just look, there's the deer again. That's amazing. And here's the Tamar. You can see the deer again in the distance. That's so gorgeous. Tamar flowing down now, starting to build up a bit of a head of steam. And there it is on the other side. Must be a lovely place to live, this. Also, just looking up the road there, not sure if you can see that, there's a Devon, welcome to Devon sign. Once again, I'm not sure where the welcome to Cornwall sign is. Maybe I should have a word with the council about this. Before we stop off at the next bridge over the Tamar, I thought we'd just pop in and have a look at Upper Tamar Lake. So there's the Upper Tamar Lake and the Lower Tamar Lake, and these are reservoirs. You might be able to see behind me. It's pretty big, so they were created to provide water for nearby Bude and the surrounding areas. Apparently the Lower Tamar Lake to the south was constructed to supply the Bude Canal with water. So yeah, there's a dam here below us, I believe, and yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Thought we'd take this in before we get back on to checking out more bridges. I guess as we're standing right over the middle of the lake here, that we're right on the border again between Devon and Cornwall. So we've just walked down from the Upper Tamar Lake that we were just looking at, and now So we're just downstream from where the dam was, and kind of in between the upper lake and the lower lake. And here's the next bridge, Alfredsworthy, over the Tamar, forming the next bit of our border. There's a little weir there, so it's building up a bit of a head of steam now before it gets down to the next reservoir. Here's the Devon sign. Still no sign of a Cornwall one on the other side. I really don't know what's going on. Let's see if we can get a bit of a better view of the bridge. There's some quality arch work, hopefully. Yeah, it must be pretty old. I haven't been able to find any information on this particular bridge. A few of the ones that we're going to look at further down river go back to the 1400s and 1500s, and there's a lot written about those ones. Nothing about this one, but still probably pretty old. But looking at the brickwork, and yeah, good grief, it's still so pretty, isn't it? Now a few miles further south along the course of the Tamar, just coming up to another lovely old bridge, and let's take a look, see what's happening with the river. Hopefully you can hear the sound of it as it drifts off southwards. It's definitely getting wider now, isn't it? And it's good to see it's at a decent level as well. I guess we've had a lot of rain recently. Might just be able to see someone's built a little swing hanging from a tree there. Don't think I'll have a go of that. I'm clumsy enough as it is, as you saw earlier. And here's the other side, a bit more gentle this side. And the other thing I wanted to show you was, finally, this side there's actually a sign for Cornwall and Kernow. Those lovely bilingual signs that they have. Not sure how many people speak Cornish these days, but I believe it's in a much healthier state than it was a few decades ago, when the language seemed to be pretty much extinct. Really sad state of affairs, especially when you consider the vibrancy and the take-up of the Welsh language in Wales, where I believe it's about sort of 20–25% of the population speak Welsh. However, I believe there's been a real revival recently, especially among young people, of the Cornish language. I think I'm right in saying as well that the musician Gweno released an album recently where she sang everything in Cornish, so that's good to see. I know that there's been a real effort to make road signage in Cornwall bilingual now, so there's much more awareness of the language around, and I think that can only be a good thing. Sun's come out and we're now in Bridge Rule, so we've come a bit further down the course of the river. I've missed out 2 or 3 of the smaller bridges. I'm not going to be able to do every single one over the next couple of days. I think in total there's about 22–23 bridges over the Tamar, but I'm going to be covering some of the major ones as we go further south now. So we're in Bridge Rule. So this is a village that actually it's divided by the Tamar. So in the past it was in both Devon and Cornwall, but in 1844 the Counties Act, which was dealing with sort of detached parts of places, decided to shift the border over. So actually the border's now moved over to the west, and Bridge Rule is actually exclusively in Devon. But it's a very interesting place with lots of history, and let's take a little look at the river here. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a really lovely spot here. So actually It's a really ancient crossing of the Tamar here. So apparently, according to Google, thank you Google, so the crossing here can be traced back to, well, there's been a crossing here since before the Norman conquest in 1066. So that's pretty ancient, isn't it? And in terms of the name of the place, so the ancient name for the parish is in fact Bridge, B-R-I-G-E apparently. But by the time of the Domesday Book, the manor belonged to a man called Ruld, or Ruald, R-U-A-L-D. So the name we know today is Bridge of Ruld, or Bridge Rule. A few miles further south again, missed out maybe 2 or 3 smaller little bridges. I'm heading down now to Boyton Bridge, in the village of Boyton. This is actually quite a modern bridge, built in 2005 to replace one that I think was built in the middle of the 1800s. You see some of the brickwork here. Obviously from the previous bridge. Apparently there was one here way before that as well, in 1614, first recorded crossing. Bridge with sort of timber supports and so on, but that fell into disrepair. Again, a bit further south along the course of the Tamar, and we're at another absolutely deliciously gorgeous spot. This is Druxton Bridge, apparently built back in 1662, and this has historical significance as well in terms of borders, which I shall tell you about in a sec once I've shown you how lovely the river is looking at this spot. Yeah, so apparently the parishes of North Petherwin, a very Cornish sounding name there, and Warrington, which is I guess where we are at the moment, so they were in Devon, and this was apparently just some kind of accident from back in the time of William the Conqueror, 1066. So it was pretty much just an accident of map drawing. Anyway, but finally in April 1966, so 880 years later, the border was finally sort of moved back to the Tamar, and so this bridge actually once more assumes the role of a border crossing, and those villages and parishes are now rightfully in Cornwall where they should be. Next stop on our journey is the Nether Bridge, so again a bit further south from Druxton Bridge where we were a few moments ago. This bridge I think dates back to the 1500s, so really does have some proper history going on here. As you might have seen, there's a road bridge built just a few yards to the side of it, so that this bridge has been very much preserved from road traffic. And there's the Tamar flowing south. A bit slower here, but it's definitely, as you can see, getting wider and wider now. And look across to the hills in the distance there of Cornwall. Look over this way, Devon. And look over the other side of the bridge. You can see there's the more modern road bridge. I'll give you another view of the bridge. I'm stood on the Cornwall side of the border here. and you get a much better view of this really old bridge with 3 arches, a span of about 25 feet of with piers of 28 feet from the riverbed to bridge parapet. And over here there's a smaller arch which apparently is for flood water as well. But yeah, according to everything I've read, this is pretty much as it was, it's been left as it's pretty much as, you know, the bridge looks pretty much as it did back in the 1500s. There's some other historical significance with this bridge. In 1644, so during the English Civil War, apparently there was a clash between the Royalists under Sir Richard Grenville and the Parliamentarian troops under the Earl of Essex on this very bridge. Possibly its proximity to Launceston, the ancient capital of Cornwall, might have had some significance. We're going to be heading there next and looking at some more bridges and some more views of the Tamar.
Went on a straight, flat trajectory off his left foot and out for a go kick. Sadly, what we're nearly looking for.
So we're now just on the outskirts of Launceston, the ancient capital of Cornwall. This is a place that's been significant in history since the Norman conquest. There's ruins of a castle that dates back to the 1200s. And the bridge here over the Tamar, forming the border, is called Polson Bridge. And it's historically very significant and still feels very much like a Cornish scene here, which I'm gonna show you shortly. Just coming up to Polson Bridge here. Here's the Tamar, pretty fast flowing now actually at this point. As you can see, it's getting pretty wide. I see some people fishing down there. It's becoming a serious river at this point. You may be able to just see over there as well, the other side. What you might be able to see and hear is some rugby being played. Rugby is an extremely important sport in Cornwall, and we're right by Launceston Rugby Union Football Club here. So something interesting about the stadium I'm going to show you shortly as well. So the bridge was historically significant, a bit like the Nether Bridge during the Civil War. Apparently it was a scene of some pretty violent skirmishes, and I believe the parliamentarians might have actually destroyed the bridge, or a version of the bridge, back in around 1646. So I'm not sure exactly how old this iteration of the bridge is, but I'm gonna just sweep back now so you can see it there. Really lovely. That noise is a tractor going past. Very much very noisy tractor, in fact. Another bilingual Cornwall sign there. Hopefully you can see the seats there on the stand. They're arranged in the style of the Cornish flag, black with a white cross on. Gives you a sense of the national pride, or the sense of pride to be Cornish that's felt down in these parts. Of course, there are some people in Cornwall who believe Cornwall should actually be an independent country. It's always had a sense of being separate, being other from the rest of England. I think obviously a lot of that is to do with its geographical location, right down in the southwest corner, kind of on its own, isolated. But also the Tamar has formed quite a barrier. There actually haven't been that many crossings historically across, so it's always been that sense of you know, the English one side of the river and Cornish the other, and the Cornish people kind of being, you know, left to their own devices and being quite happy about that. So I think it kind of goes along with the general rise of local nationalism that you're seeing around the world. Obviously in the UK, Scotland, there's a big push for Scotland to become independent. Could happen one day. And I think things like Welsh national identity and Cornish national identity sit alongside that. Okay, a few miles south of Launceston now. The river's getting much wider, much fiercer. Really special bridge that I've got to here called Greystone Bridge, built in 1439. I'm going to try and give you a shot of it now and then do a few more in a sec. So Greystone Bridge is actually grade 1 listed, which in the UK means it's protected but also of real national historical or architectural significance. So and I can quite understand that, being built in 1439, and it's still taking traffic over the River Tamar, which is quite wide at this stage. So I'm going to flip it around for you so you can get a better look. So the main camera battery is just gone, typical, just as I'm at a key point when I'm trying to show off a beautiful bridge. So I've flipped to the iPhone anyway, and at least I'll be able to give you a shot of this, the arches of this amazingly ancient bridge. There it is. Seems to be the best angle I can get. I can get another one in a sec. I'll try. Beautiful. I'm in the car at the moment, but I'm actually on a ferry, a chain ferry going across the Tamar at Plymouth. It's called the Tor Point Ferry. It goes from Devon Port, where the Royal Naval Base is, and goes over to the Cornwall side at Tor Point. So I guess at the moment we're right in between Devon and Cornwall. And there's Cornwall over there. I think we'll be there in a few minutes. The reason I took the ferry is because I really wanted to explore a real quirk of the border between Devon and Cornwall. So I've come over to the Rame Peninsula, which is a sticky outy bit of land kind of facing back across to Plymouth. It's often called a bit of a hidden gem of Cornwall, as it's actually quite hard to get here. You need to take that ferry, or the drive round is actually quite sort of convoluted. Anyway, the reason I've come over and I've come to a place called Kingsand or Kingsand is that there was a real quirk of the border here, and there's a very special house that I'm hoping to find. So join me and let's see if we can find it. So the funny thing about Kingsand is that it was actually a part of Devon until around 1844, and apparently the reason is that part of this peninsula, the Rame Peninsula, because it was strategically quite important in terms of where it's situated by the sea, so it was incorporated into the Anglo-Saxon territory in 705 AD apparently, in order to secure the banks of the Plymouth Sound against Viking raids, so that basically obviously you had protection of Plymouth Sound as well, but also on the other side of the water over here at the Rame Peninsula. And it wasn't actually returned to Cornwall until 1844. So yeah, there's a really sort of strange exclave of Devon over here in Cornwall. And what I'm hoping to show you is a house that still has a boundary marker on it from the past. So that's what we're looking for. But for the meantime, let's just take in this incredible view. So the boundary marker on the house is around here somewhere. It's only a tiny little village, so I should be able to find it soon. Anyway, let's go up here. We've gone on to Garrett Street. Oh, there it is, I found it. Oh, that's brilliant. Check this out. Look at that, that is fantastic. I don't think there's a better boundary marker around. So, before 1844, here I'm in Devon, and here I'm in Cornwall. Now I'm just in Cornwall, but I love that. That is so cool. And also I just noticed on the house as well itself, just above the door there, it says Devon and Corn. A few miles south now of Greystone Bridge, and the next location is Horsebridge, which is the name of the hamlet where we are, but also the name of the bridge itself. And this actually is even older than the bridge at Greystone, a couple of years older, so it's built in 1437, which makes it the oldest bridge on the whole length of the River Tamar. And I'm not too sure, but it looks very similar in construction to the one at Greystone in terms of materials used and its design. So maybe that's something to look into. I imagine it was something to do with the church. But yeah, really old, really beautiful. Also Grade 1 listed as well. The river's getting pretty wide at this point. I think there are about 4 or 5 arches of this bridge over the river. Let's take a look. There's some interesting Civil War history associated with this bridge. In 1644, apparently the Earl of Essex and 10,000 of his men crossed over the Horsebridge here, over the Tamar, advanced into Cornwall. Earl of Essex was on the parliamentarian side. Also though, apparently at the pub up the road, the Royal Inn is called the Royal Inn because King Charles I stayed there at one point during the Civil War. Just goes to show this part of the country was a really important area of conflict during those times. Come a few miles further south now to Gunnis Lake and take a look at what's called the New Bridge. Even though it was built in the 1500s, I think it might have been around 1512 it was built, so not that new. But yeah, a famous bridge. It's interesting. It's actually the last way you can cross the Tamar by road before you then actually get down to the big Tamar Bridge in Plymouth, which wasn't actually built till 1965. So it seems pretty incredible for such a long time that actually the only other way you could get over the Tamar south of here was by ferry or by train until, you know, the mid-60s. Anyway, another beautiful bridge, similar in style to the ones that we saw at Greystone and at Horsebridge in terms of these little bits where you can stand to let the traffic go by. So Gunnis Lake is just over there, actually, in Cornwall. Then we've got the bridge, and then Devon just over there. Gunnis Lake is famous as a mining town, well, at least until the middle of the 1800s, when the mining started to sort of wind down. It's now a World Heritage Site because of its incredible mining history. The other interesting things to say about this bridge is there's also Civil War history once again. There was actually a battle of Gunnis Lake Bridge in 1644. I think it lasted for about a day between the Royalists and the Parliamentarian forces. Not quite sure who won. My Civil War history isn't brilliant. Another interesting thing about Newbridge here at Gunnis Lake, the great British painter Joseph Turner, one of his paintings is called Crossing the Brook, and that's actually of this crossing here, the Newbridge crossing here at Gunnis Lake. Interesting that he put Crossing the Brook. It's hardly a brook at this point, it's very much a river. Just gonna have to wait for this lorry to go past. So I find it incredible that these bridges that have been built 500–600 years ago are still handling so much traffic. It's incredible. The next destination we're going to, there is another crossing there, and while it might not be a road bridge, it's pretty spectacular and goes over an area where the River Tamar really is starting to wind and weave through the countryside. We've now come a couple of miles further south down the river, and we're in a place called Calstock, another old mining centre in Cornwall. And as I said, you can't actually cross the Tamar anymore in your car at this point or any further south until you get all the way down to Plymouth and can cross the actual Tamar Bridge. However, what you can do is cross the river on a train over this. So the Calstock Viaduct was built in, I believe, 1907. My phone tells me it has 12 arches. It's 120 feet high. And 3 of the piers stand in the Tamar, as you can see. The river's actually tidal at this point. Actually, mud flats and so at this point. So yeah, really starting to get that sense of it sort of charging towards the sea at this point. Well, we're starting to get towards the end of the border now. It's funny to think that just over there is Devon. There's something about, it feels a bit different now. You can't actually walk across or drive across. It feels like a point of difference. Anyway, yeah, Calstock is pretty much the penultimate point I wanted to show you. And we'll be moving down to Plymouth now and taking in the, the last big major crossing over the Tamar. We've got 2 bridges to look at, the Royal Albert Bridge and the Tamar Bridge. So we're finally coming to the end of our journey down the Devon and Cornwall border. We're down at Plymouth now, Plymouth Sound, and that above me is the Royal Albert Bridge, which is the railway bridge on the Cornish main line, going across from Devon and Plymouth over to Cornwall here in Saltash. You may have seen the name on the bridge there, designed by the famous British architect or just an all-round genius, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. The bridge was opened in 1859. By that point, Brunel wasn't too well, unfortunately, and then died in September of 1859, by which time the bridge had already been opened. So his name has been put on there as a memorial to him and his genius. Let's have a bit more of a look around and take in the beautiful ironwork of this bridge. So the other bridge you can see next to the Royal Albert Bridge is the Tamar Bridge, which is the road bridge going across from Plymouth to Saltash. Opened in '62, I believe. Incredible to think a major road bridge wasn't actually built till then and opened till then. People were still having to rely on the ferries if you were down in this part of the world, or go up to Gunnis Lake to go across the bridge there. Reconstructed, I believe, at the end of the 90s and reopened in 2001 in order to be able to handle more traffic, more lorries and so on. I think it might have been something to do with European law as well. So yeah, those are the last two bridges before the Tamar makes its way out into the sea. And that's pretty much the end of our journey on this border walk. So it's been a bit of an epic journey. We've been up on the Atlantic coast and we've come all the way down to near the English Channel. We've followed the source of the Tamar from a little trickle in a ditch somewhere. Not quite sure if we definitely found it, but it was somewhere around there. And now here it is, tidal, wide, and about to enter the sea. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have enjoyed it and like this sort of nerdy geographical and historical content, or just like borders like me, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be doing more of these hopefully over the coming months, and maybe give the video a little thumbs up as well. So from Devon and Cornwall and the mighty River Tamar, it's toodaloo.